Julie.
Hello.
Hi. Is that Ralph? Did Andrea
Ralph made it? Yeah, I didn't know if Ralph would make it because Andrea was poorly. Oh, here she goes.
Oh, that's not Ralph, that's the bigger one.
Grown up, yes.
As usual, Sydney.
Gosh, right.
He's asleep.
Can you hear Ralph? Not Ralph. Oh.
Sid.
Oh, that didn't work. Oh.
Okay. Oh God, okay, woke him up. Look at him, it's asleep.
Hello. Are we all in? We're nearly comfy. Right then.
He's got it.
So I'm just going to mute everybody. I'll tell you for why. Hands up if you've done Zoom before. Just give me a wave so you know how to do it. Right. So you'll know then that what happens with Zoom is whoever's the loudest in the group will steal the microphone. And that can mean then that the sound quality can deteriorate quite quickly. So I'm stealing the mic as the speaker. So I'm your trainer. My name's Julie. Some of you will have met me before or been exposed to me before and already be quite bored of me, I'm sure, Andrea, pulling faces. And some of you will have met my dogs before who do my demos with me. So we'll just introduce them because they like to be introduced. So, oh, here we go. Come here, kids. Let's have a look at you. So, here's a dodo. Oh. You've got to put your nose down, otherwise they can't see you. There you go. So there's a dodo, and Dodo is a Podenco Cross Spaniel from Spain, and he's nearly 3. So this is the Dodo, and he is my naughty demo dog, so he's really good at showing you how not to do things. And then we've got, come here. Here is Maybe. Maybe's going to be 14 in 2 weeks' time. So she doesn't do a lot of demos because I don't really like her slipping on this floor. She's okay for doing demos on more sensible surfaces, but I don't like her moving around too much in here. So she can go over there and wait there. Twiggy, come here, darling. Come here, darling. Oh, big stretch. She'll be with us in a minute. Come here. This is my middle child. Turn around to the camera, please. Thank you very much. This is my middle child. She's my tiny little dog. My horrible Dodo. My tiny little dog, and she's 7.5. Yeah, and she's a little love, and she likes doing demos, but she gets it right too much. So she's not a very good demo dog because she just makes you all feel awful, I think. And makes your expectations too high. Go on in there. Go and lay down. Okay, so that's the gang. So that means that I can sort of show you, hopefully show you what I'm talking about when I'm saying do this, do that, do the other. Training online, not something I would have ever chosen to do until we had to. And actually it's worked out quite nicely. I think a lot of people have really enjoyed it. One of the big benefits is that you get a video at the end, so you can go back and you can go over everything and double check. Now, what I do like is to try and get that same or similar social feeling that you might feel that you're missing out a bit, not doing a live class. And the way we try and get you involved a bit is I'm going to keep coming to you and asking you questions and getting you to ask me. So I like to be interrupted. If you're not understanding something, if it doesn't make sense, or you've got something suddenly comes into your head, do just stop me. And the easiest way to do that is to shake your hand, make it really obvious, get right in the camera and shake your hand at me, and we'll ask you to unmute yourself. So we're going to have a practice at that first off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say to Millie, because you're at the top of my list, I'm going to press my button that asks you to press your button. So you can unmute yourself. And then you're going to introduce yourself and your baby and how old your baby is.
I'm Millie, and this is my partner Callum. This is our Goldador puppy Orla, and she is nearly 9 weeks old, and we got her yesterday. And she can smell the treats in my pocket. So she's just woken up from a nap.
And
yeah.
Have you lived with a dog before?
I've grown up with pugs, which are quite unruly animals, and I've always had sort of Labradors in my life, but growing up with naughty pugs made me realise I want a very well behaved doggy. So that's why we're training straight away.
Oh, bless. So you're still in the throes of passion at the moment with a cuddly puppy.
But Callum, he has never had a pet before, so Orla is his first pet. So he's completely in love and lets her get away with everything.
He's going to have a baptism of fire. We're going to talk about that. So beautiful. Well, congratulations on your new baby. Okay, and Andrea, bless you. Go on then. Tell us all about your new little person.
Well, Ralph's been with us 4 weeks. He's a golden retriever. He's 12 weeks old. He's a little brother of Sydney, who's 15 months old. And he's our 5th retriever. So we're not new to it, but it's different every time. And he's a complete different character to Sid. And he's fast asleep now.
He'll be up in a minute when we need him to be. So always had the same breed. So you're a good person to ask then. Are they all the same then? If you get the same breed, do you always end up with the same problems and same kinds of behaviours, or would you say that they're all very much individuals?
Very much individual. You get a theme running. There's always specific themes like barking, toileting, sleeping, obedience, all of that. And some are good at other things and some are good at different things. There's always there's different. Every time it's different. You can't compare the two.
Yeah. Okay. Because quite often people get a breed expecting them to be a certain way because they've known a dog of that breed in the past. And then they're really sometimes quite shocked that they get this completely other.
Well, Ralph's really cuddly now. Sid is very snooty and doesn't like a lot of cuddling. She likes a lot of treats, but not a lot of cuddling. But Ralph is a cuddly dog, which is lovely. And not
okay. And he looks cute. He's doing a good job of selling the breed right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll ring you at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah. As usual.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and we've got Rosie. I'm going to put Rosie on the spot. How do you do?
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name's Rosie, and I've got Oakley. He's just got back into bed. I don't know if I can turn my camera around. Hello. He was fast asleep. And he's 15 weeks now, so he is slightly older. Good boy. Do you want to come and see the camera? Look. Got his little bow tie on. He's really tired. Tired, aren't you, doggy?
All right. And what's your previous experience with dogs then?
I've had a pet before when I lived with my parents, but Connor's had, you know, like on and off.
Yeah, on and off.
On and off dogs before, but apart from that, he's our first like proper pet together.
Okay, and what's your experience with him so far?
To be fair, he's not been too bad. He's been all right. I think the main thing we're sort of facing at the minute is he's quite aggressive with when he's got food, toys and chews and things like that. But apart from that, he's quite good.
It's just a bit nippy, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's all it is, really.
Okay. And you said he's 15 weeks old at the minute.
He is, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so well out of the, so you may now be able to talk to us about, have you hit the point at which you start wondering, we all hit it at some point, but you start wondering why on earth you put a puppy in your life?
Yeah. Yeah. He's very spoiled.
So that point at which they're maybe still toilet training, they're still biting, they're still stealing things, they're still chewing things that you'd rather
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
true.
There's quite a common issue that pup owners sort of hit. Usually about a month or 2 months after they've started living with a puppy, where they can really get quite depressed because it's not as they expected it to be, and it's harder than they expected it to be. Have you experienced that yet, or you still?
Slightly. I mean, it is difficult. We've just, I don't know if you can tell by our house, but we've literally just moved house a week ago. So all the walls are stripped and it looks like we're living in a bit of a bomb's gone off. So it's quite difficult in that aspect, having just moved house and him having to get used to a new house again. But yeah, we're getting there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Good. Well, it sounds like you're being very level-headed about it, and I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I personally, I usually do get puppy depression after a few weeks of living with them. So
yeah.
Okay, so we'll mute you for a second. So puppy training and puppy raising has changed a lot since, I mean, I'm just over 50 now, so I'm getting on a bit. And when I first started living with, and I've lived with dogs since I was 4, so I've never been dogless. But when I started living with a dog in my own right and being responsible for training that dog in my own right and learning about dog training from other trainers, it was still very much that a dog had to do as it was told, and that you would punish it if it didn't. And if you got a really, really good trainer, they would let you use treats in the class. But that wasn't the main drive. You were seen as a bit of a namby-pamby if you took treats into the class with you and you did anything other than just verbally praise them. So it's changed massively, and the knowledge of how to do it and the best ways to do it is growing constantly, because now in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, they've actually started really investigating what's needed in the upbringing and the care of a dog. And they've recognized that those methods that involve punishment are more likely to lead to increased aggression. So they've done a lot of studies into dog bites in recent years, and the main thing that's come out of those studies is that using punishment and using aggression towards a dog, especially as it's a developing person, a developing puppy, is more likely to cause aggression later on when they're grown up. So we're definitely not going there. We are at Little Tykes, we are force-free and aversive-free. And with my qualifications and my memberships for different organisations, then they are all advocates of force-free and aversion-free training methods. And what I need to tell to you now is that you don't really even need to tell your dog no. They don't need that information. And we'll hopefully by the time you finish with us on this first 6 weeks, you won't, you're going to be going out there as advocates for good training methods. And that because at the moment, even on the TV, there are trainers who are not doing it the way it should be done according to the new information. So we need lots of people who've been through, read and got the new information and have learned the techniques for themselves, who can then go out and advocate for those techniques and say to people, look, I can help you, I can advise you, and I can send you in the direction of finding better help. Yeah. So my aim is to not just train you to train your dogs, but to help you to spread the word and be angels out there in the society. And some people that have been exposed to me and exposed to our techniques have then gone on and decided that they want to become dog trainers themselves. And if that's the case, that's perfect, because it just means there's going to be more dogs out there and more owners out there who are going to benefit in the long run. So you will get notes, you will get this video, so you don't have to, I want you to enjoy the process, not feel like you've got to focus so entirely that you mustn't miss anything. Yeah, I want you to relax and have a good time and just chill out and have a laugh. And like I say, feel free to just chip in, and if your puppy needs a wee, like Ralph's just gone off, just go. Don't hang about thinking you've got to do this or you've got to do that. It's all kind of free flow. So the first thing we're going to consider then is that if we don't get our dog into the right physical and mental condition, they're not going to be able to learn. It's going to make it much more difficult for them to learn. So when we're looking at physical condition, we're talking about a dog who's physically healthy and has a good nutritional base. So they've got the elements going into their body and into their brain to make their brain grow properly and be able to learn properly. And that the puppy is not in a state of stress. So that can be physical or emotional stress when we're trying to teach them, so that they are able to be relaxed and to learn. We need to get them into a condition where they're motivated to do what we ask to do. So we need to find out what it is that switches them on and what they like and what they want to work for. So we're going to have a quick word about what all of that means. So nutrition, most of the good dog foods are perfectly nutritionally based for dogs. I know there's a lot of information going around that can really cloud the information and say to you, oh, your dog must be only eating raw food, or your dog must only be eating grain-free food, or blah, blah, blah. But dog food manufacturers have to provide all of the nutrients, and they have to prove that they have. So if you're using any good quality dog food, then it's probably fine for your dog. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's the same though. So I, for example, suffer from IBS, so there's certain foods that I have that will trigger me to become unwell. And that's me, that's my personal makeup. That doesn't mean that every other human in the world can't eat those things that I don't eat. It does mean though that I personally have to be careful. And dogs are the same. You can have a dog who can't handle grain in their diet, or a dog who can't handle chicken in their diet, or eggs, or one particular protein type. The next sort of thing is that these advocates for completely natural raw diets, what you have to consider is certain foods they can't digest as well as we can unless they're cooked. So certain vegetables, and for some dogs, certain grains they can't digest unless they're cooked. And dogs are not designed to live on just a pure protein diet. They're not designed to live on just meat. They've shared their lives with us for thousands and thousands of years, and they've been eating our food. And our food now is mostly a mix of grains. Dogs can live on a meat-free diet as long as they're getting other nutrients provided for them in other ways, whereas cats cannot live on a meat-free diet, so it's do not even go there. So if you're on a good quality diet, we also suggest, because recent studies have shown that you can reduce the risk of cancer by making sure that they have available to them a wide selection of different fresh vegetables as well as their ordinary dog food diet. So adding other things in. Now, the only thing I would say with that is be careful that there are some rather odd things that you might not realize dogs can't digest. So they're not good with things like anything that's in the onion family, and certain nuts, for example. So go on, there's loads on the websites. Go on, make sure that it's safe for dogs to eat before you offer it. Now, the other reason that I mention that is that when you're looking for the food reward types that you're going to use for your dog, I want you to have a think about not just buying those treats over the counter that are sold as dog treats and dog training treats. I want you to really investigate this, because I've had dogs working their socks off in class for things like bits of cucumber or bits of apple or bits of carrot. Yeah, so I want you to test and see, does your dog have these food preferences that you might be missing out on if all you're doing is going out and getting these ready-made dog treats, which are quite expensive and they run out quite quickly, but actually your dog might be perfectly happy to work for something else. Yeah. So some dogs do have problems, obviously, with milk and digesting milk, because they tend to be naturally lactose intolerant. It's not like some of us can be, some humans can be, but most dogs are lactose intolerant. So when you're investigating using cheese as a reinforcer, for example, what I would suggest with your puppies is try a little bit, see what happens the next day. Be sort of introduce new foods slowly, little bit by little bit each day, so you can see if there's any obvious reactions to that. But when you're talking about training with treats, and I think food is a natural reinforcer, everybody needs to eat. It's something that everybody wants. It's very, very rare to find a dog who isn't motivated by food. Generally, if they're not really wanting the food, it's because the task is too difficult, or the environment's too difficult, or that particular food is not reinforcing enough, and you need to investigate what your other options are. Is there something better? Okay, so food size of treats. Think about, I want you reinforcing these dogs very, very frequently. So if you're giving them very big chunks of food, they're going to get full very quickly. They're not going to want to keep training. So tiny bits at a time. But I also want them to taste something. So we don't want to be so tiny that they don't feel like they're getting a reward. Yeah, so it's measuring somewhere between the two. The next thing I want you to think about is, if you were using a dry food, their own food, for example, and they like it, and that's fine, and they want to work for it, but they might not be able to eat a lot of it before their throat starts to get dry. So you might want to make sure that water is available at all times. Plus, the brain doesn't function very well when we become dehydrated. So I would always consider, whatever you're doing with your puppy, have a drink available, because the more that they're thinking, the more that they're panting or getting excited or eating, the more they're going to need to drink. And being thirsty makes it difficult to learn. So I tend to go for my own dogs, when I'm doing puppy training, I tend to go for moist or semi-moist treats, so they can eat a lot of them, and that they break up easily, so that I can divide them up into lots and lots of little instant reinforcers. Size-wise, we don't want them wandering off and chewing and forgetting what it was that they were doing. We want to be able to give them a piece and it's gone. So we can then give them another piece. So we can get rapid reinforcement over and over and over, without the dog getting full, without the dog getting a dry throat, and without them losing interest in that treat type. Okay, so there's one of your jobs this week, is to do yourself a food test and figure out whether or not your dog's got preferences. And I want you to kind of score them, you know, and everybody's score is going to be different. So when I did Maybe's score 14 years ago, I could say that chicken was pretty high on the score, but actually a really big reinforcer for her was the ball and access to the ball. And I would say, on balance, they were both in the 10s. You know, being able to chase a ball, go after a ball, was as reinforcing as a piece of food. And if I offered the two together, it would depend on how she was feeling at the time, whether she went for the ball or whether she went for the chicken. So you need to know as much as you can about your dog's preferences, what they would work for, given the opportunity to choose. All right, so we'll go then, loads of talking. Should we do some fun instead? Yeah, any questions about anything I've said so far? No wiggles, no waves. Okay, so we're going to ask Dodo whether or not he will do us a little demo. And one of the first things we need to be able to learn is how to use food effectively to teach. Because your puppy, you could get them really, really excited about food and having food in your hand. But right at that moment, is he thinking about what he's doing, or is he just thinking about getting hold of that food? Yeah. How do we get him thinking about what he's doing to get hold of that food? How do we put those two together? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we can deliver the treat in a very specific way. So we're going to put the treat onto the center there, in the center of our fingers. We're going to put a thumb over the top of it. Now I can offer him that treat and let him really, really try and take it. He can put his tongue on it, he can taste it, he can really try and take it, but it's still there. I'll show you from this direction. So he's really, really having a go. He says, I can really try and get my teeth in there, but it's still there. Now that means that I can choose to move my thumb at exactly the right moment. Okay, so I want you to get his treat, whatever treat you're using, and I want you to show me that you can do that. So I want the food on your fingers, with your thumb over the top. Make sure your puppy has a really, really good go at getting it. So you've got proper slimy fingers. And then when you're ready, I want you to show that you can just release that treat by moving your thumb out of the way. Okay, let's get you on gallery view so we can see you all. Pop it right on the end of the nose. Now your pup, what I want you to do, if your pup's reluctant, it might be that the food isn't something that they're dead interested in at the moment. So it might be that you need to go get something that's a bit tastier. It might be that you've accidentally taught them to be worried about hands. So they're not sure that they're allowed to take it. And if that's the case, then what I want you to do is just open palm and give a couple without your thumb in the way. Yeah, so give a couple without your thumb in the way with an open palm, and then offer another one with your thumb in the way. So we're going to get them thinking that it is actually allowed. They are allowed to approach that hand. Now, most puppies are going to be a bit chewy. What you'll find, if you can make sure they can taste it, they can get their tongue in there, and your hand is a little bit cup-shaped, they're going to be pushing their nose in, which means they're less likely to open their mouth and bite on the thumb. They're going to be pushing their nose into that cup. All right, so your nice little cup shape with your thumb, make sure they can taste the food. And when they've really, really tried to get that food, we're going to release that thumb out of the way so that they can take it. And that gives us the ability to let go of the food at exactly the right time when we want to tell them they've made the right choice. So what we're going to do, glue it to the nose, make sure they're licking, and I want you to move them half a step and then release your thumb. We're not asking them to do much, but what we do want is we want them to be in connection with the hand, move a little bit, and then release that food. Little bit of connection, move a little bit, release the food. Easier said than done when you're working with two dogs. We'll go back here and remember to feed the one that's sitting still. Put you on your bed, please. Thank you. Stay there. On the bed, stay there. Okay, so a little bit of movement. Not going anywhere in particular at the moment. We're just learning how to follow that hand and follow that food. And I want you to slowly move your hand and have your puppy follow in connection to that hand. So some puppies are going to be a bit worried. Take your hand really slow and get them moving a couple of steps. If your puppy's still not keen to follow that hand, then what I want you to do is just go back to being still, move the thumb and let them eat. Offer it, be still, move the thumb and let them eat. When they're really keen and they're sure they're allowed to take the food, you can start to move them one step. And when they're really keen and they're following the hand and they're keeping connection on that hand, then you can start moving them decent spaces. So the first thing we're going to show them, can you go on your bed? And I want Dodo. No, Twiggy on your bed. Dodo here. First thing we're going to teach them is how to turn in a circle. Now to do that, I want you to pay them every quarter. So they're going to get 4 treats on the way round for that circle. On the nose, first quarter there, go get another treat. Drop it on the floor. Then we're going to pay them when their nose is as far away from me as I can. Turn them, I'm going to pay them here. And turn them, I'm going to pay them here. So I stay still. The dog's doing 4 quarters of the circle. When you've gone all the way around once, then you can pay for just half a circle. And then eventually, you're going to pay when the dog's doing a full circle. All right. So, Rosie, you're having trouble. She's not keen to go after that hand. So let's talk to me. If you want to mute yourself.
There we go.
I think what it is just so tired. He's
Right.
eating whatever we give him. He just wants to keep laying down.
Yeah.
And he'll give you his paw. That's what he just does. Whenever he wants something, he'll just paw you, and he thinks he'll get it then.
Yeah.
He's
So
being
what,
lazy.
that's fine. And what I want you to do is I want you to move that hand really, really slow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to pay for less effort. So
Okay.
that stretch there, that's perfect. Pay there.
Good boy.
So we're just going to take it back, make it really easy. Just a stretch. That'll do. Okay.
Being- Good
That's
boy.
fine. And then you can slowly grow that stretch until it
Yeah.
becomes a step.
There.
There. There's a little step. Okay.
That'll do.
And eventually you're going to grow it until the puppy is following that food and happy to follow that food.
Okay. Yeah.
Come on,
All right. And Millie, how did you get on? That looked good to me. Did that feel comfortable?
Yeah, no, she did quite well. Yeah, she got a bit bored on the 4th turn, but we were listening to you and we just did it really slowly.
So I think the thing is, try not to, if your puppy's not offering a behaviour, try not to put sort of human thoughts onto it. It's not because they're stubborn or bored, but it could be because they're tired or it's too difficult and they don't feel like it's worth it to them to do it. It's too hard. Yeah. So it's a bit like me saying to you, I want you to work 40 hours, I'll give you a £5, and you'll be like, no, unless you absolutely love doing that thing, or you love me and you want to do it for me, in which case the £5 is just an added bonus. Yeah. So it might be that the job's too hard and the pay's too low, in which case we need to bring that balance back so that the dog understands it. She's getting a photo taken. She's too cute. All right, so we've got our dog hopefully then wanting to follow, wanting to do all sorts of intricate moves, and all they need to do the whole time is keep their nose in connection with the food, and we can put that nose wherever we like it. And that's what I want you to be able to do, ready for next week when we start teaching them how to do complicated moves like the sits and the downs. So, and if you've got a dog like Dodo who can turn himself inside out on one little piece of food, he says, I'm going to put my bum down. So look, he can turn his head and touch his bum without even having to move his feet. So that can be quite good fun. So that is called luring. We are putting food on the end of the dog's nose and we are luring them to move in the direction that we want them to go in. Okay, and luring is a brilliant way of teaching new behaviors and explaining to the dog very clearly what you want them to do. Now we're going to teach them the most important sound cue that they're ever going to learn. I'm going to see if anybody wants to guess, because Andrea should know what this is. What's the most important sound? Oh, Millie wants to guess. Go on then.
Is it YES?
Oh, yeah. But I don't think there's a more important sound that they can learn straight away. But I do like that. I do like that. That's a very good one. Anyone else? You're not willing to place your money, Andrea? No. Okay. So I think one of the most important things you're going to teach your dog is their name. Okay, so it's just a noise. It's just a random noise that we've ascribed to mean, when I say this, I mean you. But how does the dog know that? Dog is not a verbal communicator generally. They do have a few verbal signals, but they don't use language in the same way that we do. And, you know, if you're not careful, your dog's name could very easily start to mean whatever you're doing, stop doing it now. Or it might start to mean they might learn something else is meant to mean them. So I've had a few dogs that I've done consults with or training with where I've been pretty convinced that the dog thinks its name is no, no, stop it. So we need to introduce their name. And I think that your dog's name should be something that they love when they hear you say it. They think, oh my, I love that noise. I love that sound. I really want them to do that again. I want them to use that sound. So we try not to use it in a way that's going to mean that there's going to be trouble. So when you're trying to prevent them from doing something or interrupt them away from doing something, I don't think the name should be the place that you go to. Okay, so how do we get the name to mean something wonderful? Well, we use a technique called classical conditioning, and classical conditioning is just where we make a sound or a thing, anything, come just before something that the dog wants. Okay, now classical can also be used to link something with something the dog hates. So vets, for example, can very easily classically become linked in the dog's brain with nasty experiences, because if they come to the vets, they get a needle, and it happens regularly and it becomes connected. So to introduce their name as being a positive thing, a nice thing that the dog wants you to say, what we're going to do is we're going to say it and then feed it. We're not asking them to do anything at all. We're just going to say the name and then we're going to feed them. So I'm going to do my three. They're mostly off camera just now. That's not much use to me, is it? Can you come over there so we can see you all? Yeah? Lay down. And Dodo down. So Andrea now, because she's got, go that way a bit, down. Because you've got two dogs in your house, it's going to become very important for them to have their own individual names. So I like to do the name game. And the name game for my lot goes something like this. Dodo. Twiggy. Maybe. Dodo. Maybe. Twiggy. Lay down. Go on your bed and lay down, cheeky monkey. Go on. On your bed. Lay down. Maybe. Dodo. Twiggy. Okay? So, in other words, with your tiny puppy, obviously you're only going to have one name to shout out just now. But I want you to say the name and feed it and then leave a little gap. when you're saying nothing. And the gap's quite important because we want the puppy listening for the next time that they hear that sound, that special sound. And if we keep going, name food without a gap, it doesn't give them the listening time. It doesn't give them the time to really check it out. Go on your bed. Good boy, lay down. Oh, you're going to do both, Andrea? Yeah, do it. Do it, do it. Okay, so we're not asking them to do any other behavior. We're just going to link name with food. And you can do that while you're at home, you're just wandering about. You can randomly say their name and have something ready to give to them when they get to you. Okay, and we don't want to be using their name if we're not sure they're going to like what's going to happen after it. So we don't use their name to call them if they're not keen for a bath. We don't use their name to call them to the bath. And if they're not keen on going out for whatever reason, in the rain, we're not going to use their name to make them go out. But we're also not going to use their name when we want them to stop doing something that makes us upset, unless we're willing to pay them. So you can use the name as a positive interrupter, as a happy interrupter, if you use that name to call them away from something, but then you give them a treat or something else to do instead of whatever it was you hated them doing, you wanted to stop them doing. Does that make sense to everybody? Go on then, Millie, ask me.
We've obviously been telling Ola off by saying her name. What would you recommend just in the short term to use instead of a name?
So make sure that you've introduced the name as something that's a really nice thing to hear now. You can still use the name to stop her from doing things, but you need to make sure that instead of it just being kind of a threatening sound, something horrible is going to happen, you can call them to you to get something lovely, but that's stopped them, hasn't it? They're no longer doing the thing that you hated. The other thing to think about with puppies, though, there's no such thing as naughty. Okay, there's no such thing as naughty. Your puppy they need to know about the world. They need to put everything in their mouth. If it's there, it's a chew toy, because they don't know that it isn't. Yeah? What we're going to do is we're going to make sure they've got ample access to loads and loads of things to investigate that are safe, that they can put in their mouth, that we want them to put in their mouth and investigate and find out about. At the same time, making sure that anything that we are going to get upset about is just not accessible. It's not available. Yeah? Does that make sense? Because you can drive yourself mad, you know. You drive yourself absolutely potty. If you fix your brain, I'll get to you 2 seconds, darling. If you fix your brain on the idea of stopping behaviors, your puppy can get things wrong 1,000 times in 10 minutes. And you can say no 1,000 times. But you only actually have to teach them one thing that you do like, that you do want them to do, and you can stop all of those other behaviors from happening. So jumping up, teach them to sit. Now you don't have to tell them no, 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 don't jump up. You just say sit. Does that make sense to everybody? Andrea, were you trying to ask me a question, or were we just trying to avoid a Sydney?
I'm just trying to wrestle with 2 dogs. He's seen the chicken and gone crazy.
It's good fun, isn't it? When it's more than one. Look how easy one is.
Sid was out on a walk, but she refused to walk and had to come out. And now she's sort of I'll mute myself.
Oops, it's all right, I'll do it. Right. So, any other questions on that bit before I carry on, making Andrea's life even more miserable by getting a puppy all excited? Okay, so another one then that's involving hands, because I think hand gestures and body language are much more important to dogs than verbal language. So we've got already a lure technique with food in the hand. Now we're going to have a look at teaching dogs to move towards the hand with a targeting technique. Now, targeting is a method that's used for training lions and tigers and crocodiles and any species of animal. When you see them on the TV, they've generally been target trained, so they've been taught to go to a target. And when you see lions being examined, you can see that the handler is holding up a target stick with a big round ball or something on the end for the lion to target with their nose. And puppies can learn the same. So the way we're going to teach this, we'll have a dodo again. Good man. And to begin with, what you might need for your puppy is you might need a reason for them to approach the hand. So I want you to stick a piece of food in your Vulcan greeting. That's old Star Trek. Does everybody remember Star Trek? In your Vulcan greeting, and that piece they don't get. That's just there to encourage them to sniff. Then I'm going to offer that hand. And when he touches it, I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to bring a piece of food from elsewhere into that same hand and let him have it. So you'll only need that teasy piece between your fingers. You're only going to need that for a couple of times. Then you're going to offer the hand just there. Yes. Go back to get that treat and bring it with the same hand to your puppy. Yes. Treat. Yes. Treat. So, yes. Treat. When you've done it a few times with one hand, yes. Swap to the other hand, yes. Now my target hand, I want it to look different from normal hands. So I'm quite a talky person with my hands. They're moving all the time. So I want my dog to know that when I'm generally talking, faffing my hands around, he doesn't need to worry about them. But when they go like this, yes. It changes its shape and its action. Yes. Now the timing for my marker word to tell him he's made the right choice by touching that hand. My timing is as his nose is about to, yes, touch my hand, so that by the time I've said the word, then he's already got his nose on my hand. Yes, it's easier to teach if you do it blind. So yes, you're waiting to feel the whiskers and the nose touch your hand, and that tells you it's time to say yes. And that tells you when you've said yes, you can go get that reward. Yes. Yes. Like that. So I want to see if you can get your puppies confident to touch that hand target, to get you to say yes, to get you to go and get that reward. The target hand is going to be the reward hand, but it comes empty, then you go and get the reward after you've said yes. Any questions? Makes sense. So to begin with, make it really simple. So it's literally just in front of their nose. Yes, so it's really easy. They don't have to move anywhere. They don't have to travel anywhere. You have to literally just in front of their nose, so they think, oh, stretching and touching it. Yes, so we don't bop them on the nose. They touch us. If your pup's not keen to sniff your hand or reach out towards your hand, put your stinky bit of food in your Vulcan grip, yeah, so that they can sniff it, so they want to sniff it. You want to go out? Yeah. Go on then. do you want to go out too? Can you stay there? No? Yes, go on then. Come on, go. You want to stay in and work. You go with her then. Go. Go now. Okay, let's have a look. Sid says that I can do this, so she's not giving Ralph the chance to get it right. Yes, nice, Ralph, well done. So the reason that we're rewarding from the same hand is we kind of want the dog to be a little bit mixed up about whether there's food there or not. But remember, when you're giving the food, it looks different from when you're offering your target hand. And you're going to grow that until you're able, until you can have your dog swapping from hand to hand. So we're going to do yes here and reward, yes and reward, yes and reward, yes and reward. Okay, so we start making it a little bit trickier for them. But it's one of the simplest behaviors to teach. At the same time as being one of the simplest behaviors, it's one of the ones that I will use most often with behavior problems. Because it's so easy for the dog to get it right, and yet it can be used to help them get over lots and lots of different problems. Okay, so I'll show you some of the things that you can teach using a hand target in a minute. So has everybody had at least a couple of where the dog's actually actively choosing to bonk your hand with their nose? Okay. Everyone happy? Anyone really not getting it? No? Okie dokie. So one of the benefits of the hand target is if you've got a dog who mugs you for food, when you've got food in your hand and you're finding it hard to get rid of them when there's food in your hand, and they're not polite about food in your hand, yeah, then we can get rid of that food, put it into a pocket or a, yeah, and now I've got a dog who I can still guide to do behaviors without having to have the food there. So I can take her all the way back here. I can teach her to walk nicely with me because she knows that if she just keeps touch with that hand, then there is going to be a reward available to her. All right. I can move her out of the way. If she's in the way, she's a big dog, she gets in the way in tight spaces. I can help her to move. And I can teach her to do things like, what are you doing? Oh, wait a minute. I can teach her to do things like do circles, target, or to do fancy little things like come through my legs by offering her the target hand. Okay, so it's a nice, easy thing to teach them, but it's actually got a lot of uses once they've understood it. So it's not going to happen overnight. A little bit of practice every single day. All right. So next thing we're going to teach them is to look at you. Yeah. Now, your puppies might be getting tired. Generally speaking, with tiny puppies, I wouldn't ask them to do the same thing for much longer than 3 to 5 minutes maximum. So your training sessions, 3 to 5 minutes, let them have a rest, come back, do something different. Yeah, so they're not going to get bored of doing the same thing all of the time. Ralph and Andrew, it's a good job we got you on silent by the looks of it. I bet they're crazy noisy. Yeah. All right, so how do we get the dog to choose to look at us? Well, to begin with, we can use a luring method. We can use food. And we're going to put the food on the nose, but then lead the eyes towards your face by having food there. We can do that, but sometimes that makes it quite hard for them. We could do something like hold the food just slightly to one side. If the puppy goes towards that food, she says, I know this. If the puppy goes towards the food, all you're going to do is raise the hand out of the way and wait for them to back off again. Bring it back where it's more in line with your face. Wait until they glance at your face. And when they glance at your face, say yes. And then we reward them. And she says that was a bit unfair because there wasn't actually a treat in that hand just then. So that's why she went, ooh, ooh, where is it? Okay. So I want to see either lure the look all the way to your face and wait for them to glance at your eyes, mark it, yes, and then bring that piece of food back, or have the food slightly to one side of your face, wait until they stop looking at the food and they glance at your face. When they glance at your face, yes, and then you can reward them with that piece of food. Okay, now we're not going to ask them, we're not going to say anything to them. We want them to find out that looking at your face is what makes you say yes. There's none of them. And once they've understood it's about your face, what you can start doing while you're holding the food is you can start making little hand movements. And the idea is you distract them away from your face. But you've got to make sure that you only say yes when they look at your face, when they ignore this little distraction. Yeah, when they ignore this little distraction and they look at your face instead. So we'll see if I can get a camera angle where you can see what I mean by that with Twiggy. So here's my piece of food and I'm going to wiggle my hand and she goes, I'm going to look at your face instead of looking at the hand. Yes, and she's looking at me like that because I also want to move my nose away from the food because that's something else that they learn. So she's looking at me with one eye, if you like. She's trying to avoid looking at the food. Yes. And if I do it in this hand, I dropped a piece. Good girl. And if I do it in this hand, I'm going to wiggle it and play with it. And she's going to, yes, look at me instead of looking at the food or looking at that distraction. So she's learning to look at me even when there's something distracting in the environment that she would rather be looking at. Yes, and that's going to help them to focus on you instead of focusing on the environment. Any questions on that bit? Any misunderstandings? Does it make sense as to why we're going to teach them that? So later on in life, when you get really good at it, you'll be able to have them see something in the world that they're worried about or they're excited about, and instead of looking at that and worrying about that, they're going to look at you to ask you, what should I do about it? And then you can make a choice that they can either go and say hello to that dog or that person, or that you're going to tell them what you do want them to do instead. So getting them to look at you, we know that they're ready to take instruction. If they're not able to look at us, we don't know whether or not their attention's on us. Okay, so the last one we're going to teach is something I think every puppy owner definitely needs to know and wants to know, is how to get your dog to settle down when you're in the pub or the restaurant or a family friend's house. And what we do with this is you get yourself a comfy sofa and a TV and a dog, you'll need a dog, and a bed or something comfortable for them to lay on. And I want you to take a piece of food in the low position, put it on your puppy's nose, take that nose all the way to the bed and put the food on the bed. Take your hand away. If your puppy gets off the bed, that's perfectly fine. You just take that nose again, take it all the way back to the bed, put the food on the bed. Don't give it to the puppy's face. We want the pup to think that the bed is the best place in the world. Now, if you're going to start practicing ready for when we're allowed to go out and take our pups out into social environments, what I want you to do is train it on a little portable mat. Something that you can take from your home, your original training situation, take it on the road, take it with you. So that the puppy already starts to think, when I see that mat or that tea towel or that whatever you're going to fold up and take with you, when I see that thing, I know that I need to just go and settle down and relax. Now, what I'm not doing here, can you see Twiggy's paying a lot of attention to me? Now she says, I know what I'm doing, because I'm pretty sure she understands from having done so many lessons. She understands that what she's actually meant to be doing is putting her head down and not paying active attention to me. Now, I missed my opportunity to reward her there, didn't I? So I'm going to wait again. And when she's looking more relaxed, when she's not trying to get my attention, when she's not working to get my attention, keep attention on me, that's when I want the food to go down. I've dropped another bit. I'm being very droppy today. Okay, so I'm not looking at her. I'm watching the telly. I'm looking at her out of the corner of my eye. We'll set up a mirror so you can see, or set up a mobile phone connection so that you can see. And when your puppy is relaxing, instead of working, now I don't know if you can hear, but she's actually wagging a tail. So I'm waiting for a tail wag to stop as well. Because at the moment in her brain, she's working. I don't want her working. I want to catch her when she's relaxing, when she's calming down. So this is called a settle. So it's different from a downstay. It's different because I want it to just happen. When she sees me go and relax, I want her to be able to go away and relax and know that she's not needed. And when I reward her, I don't want to be telling her anything or speaking to her in any way. I want her to stay in that relaxed frame of mind so that the treats just happen. And if you can manage to get the treats to happen in a way that doesn't link to your movement, so they just happen by accident, then that's even better. So we're not looking at them, we're not talking to them, other than when you first start teaching it, you're going to guide that nose into the right place. We're going to make sure that it's the bed that's delivering the treats, not you. So she says, that's fine, I'll stay over here. And over the course of time, I build that up to even when I'm over here and I'm on my computer, I'm going to see if we can get where you can see her and me. And even when I'm over here and I'm tapping away, I'm going to ignore her while she's trying to get my attention. I've already taught her what's going to work. So she should, she's going to embarrass me now by not doing it. But in our normal lifestyles, what she would do is take herself away. And actually what she's doing just now is sticking her nose underneath my armpit. So off she goes. She's still messing about. So I'm not going to look at her, but I can use my computer camera to monitor what she's doing. And the only way she's going to get a reward from me while I'm telling her, can you go and lay down, please? Because I don't want you. All right, so never use dogs to demonstrate. All right, you'll have to take my word for it. So our normal life, when I'm on my computer typing away or when I'm on my sofa watching telly, my dogs won't come and keep hassling me because they've learned you can't see her. She's gone off camera, but she has actually gone and laid down. So now I can just throw a piece of food over there, over my shoulder. Yeah. So that's one of the first stages. Teaching a settle is one of the first stages in teaching your dog how to be on their own, because you're teaching them to go and not have attention, to be able to relax and settle down and not need you. Then you can start to replace those constant flow of treats with something that's going to last a while. So something like a stuffed Kong or a licky mat. So something you can squeeze food into. This is a super-sized licky mat for a Twiggy-sized dog. You can squeeze food into all those little holes, and then your dog spends ages trying to figure out how to get the food back out again. So they spend time licking at it. That's actually a cooking mat. So you can make dog treats in that one as well. So you can stick it in the oven. But you can buy those really cheaply. Or you can buy trademarked licky mats. They're called licky mats and they're quite expensive. And I know that Aldi's do a version of licky mat as well. So they're really good ways of teaching your dog to just go away, spend some time on their own without needing that interaction with you. And the last one we're going to have a quick look at teaching, because I've run over a tiny bit, is handling. Is having your dog let you do stuff to their body. And the more that we can teach your dog that being handled is a nice experience, the less they're going to get worried by it. And the problem with puppies is we want to get stuff done, don't we? We want to pick them up and get them out of the way because we want to get on with doing something, or we want to just put their harness on and go for that walk. And we can be a bit too quick for them, and we can over the course of time start to make them feel concerned about those experiences with us. So as much as possible, if we can teach them that it's okay and it's normal that we're going to handle them, we're going to touch them, we're going to do things with them, that they don't have to worry about it, that we can make it as a pleasant an experience as possible for them, then hopefully those times when you are in a rush are not going to be as much of a worry for them as they would be otherwise. So one of the techniques I really like for handling is a law technique. So I've got my food in my hand. Come here, my darling. She says, "What I was doing a settle." Yeah, come here. I'm going to get my food in my hand. I'm going to make sure she's really well attached. And then I'm going to pretend that I might touch her. So I'm making sure she can see my hand moving, but I'm not touching her. And then I'm going to deliver the piece of food. And what I'm looking to do is deliver when the dog is still, when she's coping. If my puppy keeps pulling away, it means I'm asking too much. I'm expecting too much. It's too much of a worry for them. So I'm going to have her on the law. I'm going to be moving my hand around as if I'm going to touch. And believe it or not, this is a dog who was very, very scared of having her ears touched when I first got her. Didn't like it at all. So on the law, waiting for them to just be really connected to that treat, do some little movements, and then maybe a little touch. And if they don't move away from your touch, deliver that treat. If they do move away from that touch, keep hold of that treat, but next time remember, expect less. Okay? Slowly, slowly build up what you can do until you can grab ears, pull ears, stick fingers inside ears, pull eyebrows and open eyes and lift lips for a treat. Okay? So slowly, slowly do it so that your dog can say no. We want them to be able to say, that's too scary. I can't handle it. So this could be when you're putting their harness on. It could be when you're attaching their lead. We want them to be able to say, that's too difficult. So that you can then move back a bit and say, well, what if I do it to this amount, to this degree? Can you cope? And the more we ask them and the more they learn that they can cope, the more they're going to be able to accept it later. Questions? Anything? Nilly's all up at the front of the screen. Do you want me?
No, I was just moving forward.
All right. So eventually, obviously, as a veterinary nurse, it's really important to me that dogs be comfortable being physically restrained. So Twiggy, this little girl that I'm working with just now, I got her, has a second-hand puppy from Spain. She was already pre-stressed in utero, so she was already a dog who tended towards the fear side. Her nature was naturally fearful. And then she'd swapped hands. I was her sixth owner by the time I got her, and she was about 22 to 24 weeks of age when I first got her. So she came with a whole bundle of pre-learned stresses and fears. So I'll show you what she can do handling wise now. Really important, as I say, to me as a veterinary nurse. No food anymore. Come here, my darling. Yeah, we're going to have her there, and we can do things like pull her lips up, open her mouth, good girl, and twiddle with her ears, and she says, where's me treats, because I've just been getting treats. And touch her back, give her an injection, pretend injections into her loose bits, feel her back end, lift her tail up. She says, that's fine, a bit uncomfortable. Gonna ask her, can you do it again? And she says, yes. So I'm gonna mark her for that one. She said it was a little bit uncomfortable last time. She was a bit unsure about what we were doing. Yeah. So we constantly practice so that when it does matter, at some point in the future, when I want to be able to treat an injury, it's not going to come as a big surprise to her. When I want to restrain her, to hold her leg up, to have somebody bandage her and mess about with her feet, that's not going to be such a big shock or a scare for her. So we do lots and lots of practice. So every single day, pretend to be a vet. Slowly work your dog up so that every piece of them is comfortable being touched and messed about with. All right. Oops. I moved you from gallery and I don't know why. Okay. So any questions about that? Any problems or concerns with handling at the moment? Got puppies that get really upset when you try and put harnesses or collars or leads or anything on them? Or are they all perfect? You want Rosie?
Hello. Yeah, I just want to say the only thing he doesn't like is if we've been for a walk and he gets quite muddy, drying his paws, like giving he's all right with his front ones, but not his back ones. He don't like it when you try and clean his back paws.
Okay. So my favorite trick for puppies for that is the licky mat. It can either be a licky mat or you can just, if you're not too grossed out by it, spread something on the floor. So cheese spread or things like, those potted meats that come in the little jars. Yeah. They're really, really good for just spreading onto a surface. So while he's busy licking that off, you can be doing what you need to do. And if it's too much, if it's too hard for him, if he takes his nose away from the licking, you stop for a second. When he starts licking again, that's your permission to start again.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll have to give that a go.
Smear it on, and we use it quite often when we're vaccinating the puppies at the practice. We'll get some of the special convalescence diets, really high flavour and high fat, and the puppies absolutely adore it. And we just smear a load on the table, and they don't notice that they've had an injection.
Leave that there. Leave it.
So have a go at that. Lay your feet, and again, if you're doing things like bathing, smear it on the inside of the bath. So your puppy's busy having a licky fest on the inside of the bath while you're just practicing bathing. All right?
Yeah, we'll go.
Okay, any other questions with that? No? Yes? Millie?
Callum's just asked, can you give them peanut butter or do they have allergies?
No, so most dogs are okay with peanut butter, but you do have to be careful because peanut butter, especially recently, has people have made it low calorie peanut butter. And to make it still palatable for humans, they've added an artificial sweetener called xylitol, which is very poisonous to dogs. You only need a tiny amount of it for a dog to have a very significant reaction to it. So if you're using peanut butter, it needs to be natural peanut butter, and it needs to, I would look, and most of them say no xylitol. But if you see xylitol in the ingredients, definitely don't go near dogs with it. And that's any of the low-calorie human foods. So things like low-calorie yogurts, for example, quite often they will have the same sweetener in them. Yeah. So natural foods from that point of view, definitely. Yeah. Any other questions? Or you're all fairly happy with your first go? Or go on, Millie. It's all right. Oops, I've muted you. Sorry. I clicked at the same time as you.
Sorry. We have one issue with Ola. She likes to eat stones from the garden.
Not eat, but put in the mouth.
Put in her mouth, and then some of them do crumble up. So what would you recommend to
So I would recommend not making a big deal out of it. Okay. As soon as you start chasing a puppy and trying to take things out of their mouth, what you're actually doing is telling them that that thing is valuable. That thing is worth having and keeping. So if you see your puppy pick something up that you'd rather they didn't have, what you actually want to do is turn your back on them and do a different little technique. So let's do a quick demo with Twiggy with that. So imagine that I've just spotted that she's over there and she's chewing something she shouldn't have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my back on her and I'm going to take a treat and I'm going to say 1. Can't even do it anymore. I want you to count treats out loudly and put them down on the floor. And usually if your attention is taken away from the thing that they're doing and you're really interested in something, because they're social animals, they're going to come over and they're going to want to know what you're doing. And if they come over and they find out that you're counting out treats, what they're going to do is they're going to come over and want to be involved with it. Go that way. Backwards, Looney. Come here, go that way. Good girl. So as soon as you see your puppy pick something up, I want you to run away, grab some treats, and start counting loudly. Good girl.
Yeah, we'll try that tomorrow when she goes outside. We just have one more question as well. Sorry. Did you say she was scraping her teeth on?
She stopped. She stopped like picking up stones at one point. Then she was like laid on the patio and like scraping her teeth on the patio. Is that a normal thing or?
Yeah, it can be. Some dogs are very sort of mouth orientated, the same as some people. When I was a child, you know, those kids that you take into a sweet shop and then you tell them not to touch things. I couldn't tell what something actually looked like until I touched it. I had no idea. My brain could not look at something and know what shape it was. I had to touch it. And some dogs are the same. You know, they've got to really investigate something and get it all the way in their mouth and really maneuver it around inside their mouth before they know what it feels like. And the more that we interrupt that behavior and the more that we get upset or angry with that behavior, the more we make them need to do it. So as long as that object is safe and you don't think your puppy's swallowing it, and they tend to, you know, they'll have a bit of an investigate of it and then they spit it out, then I would actually give them lots of options to do that. It's very rare, if you don't go after it and try and force it out of their mouth, it's very rare for puppies to swallow stuff that isn't food. Yeah. Sometimes the ones that I'd be really careful with is wrappers that have food inside.
things that have food inside, because quite often they'll swallow that because it's food, it tastes like food. But generally speaking, if it's an old pop bottle or an old milk carton or something like that, they'll rip into it to get the food out of it, to get the taste out of it, and then they'll spit the rest out. And if you make a big deal out of the stones and you keep trying to take the stones off them, what they start to do, and the risk is that they will start to want to guard the food from you. And one of the easiest ways to guard food is to swallow it. And we don't want them learning to swallow stuff to hide it from you. So this is where dogs that start swallowing socks and swallowing stones, a really good example, when Maybe was a tiny baby, I was stood with her out and I was having a chat with somebody, and this person I noticed, and I was doing what I was going to do, and this person said, "Your puppy's just picked up a piece of glass." And I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "How are you going to take it off her?" And I said, "No." He said, "But she'll swallow it." I said, "She won't." He said, "But she will." I said, "She won't." And he was about to lurch towards it to remove this. I said, "Leave her alone." And then I started with my counting game. 1, 2, and she went, "What you got?"
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for that.
So, yeah, don't dive on them and try and take stuff out of their mouths.
That's what
Run
we have
away.
been doing, ripping
Yeah.
stones out of her mouth. So
Run away, find something else better instead. Yeah. It works, doesn't it, Andrea? Oh, yes. Pick her up, a stealer, and swallow her when she was tiny. So yeah, don't. What we need to do is teach them to swap for things. Teach them that letting stuff go is a really good idea. If you let that go, I'll give you this, and this is much better. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to call that a night because we've gone over a bit. At some point onto the WhatsApp group, I'll put the link, which will be up on YouTube. And you can ask questions either on the WhatsApp group, or hopefully you've all got signed up to the Facebook group where there's extra information and stuff to have a look at there. And obviously you can ask me questions at any point, either on the Facebook group or on the WhatsApp group. So I'm available. I work as a veterinary nurse as well, so I can't be available when I'm working as a nurse, but I am available most of the time. All right, so I'm going to let you say goodbye. Hopefully no more questions. Hopefully you enjoyed your first session with me. Yeah?
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, darling. See you later. Bye.
See you tomorrow.